English Humour, a trot through the country lanes of English language humour. Part 25, Wordplay, Part 4. And so we come to our final segment on wordplay, so beloved of the English-speaking humorist. Most of I'm Sorry I Haven't a Clue's games involve wordplay, my favourite one being the already mentioned Uxbridge English Dictionary, where the comedians are invited to suggest new meanings for already existing words. Best illustration of this is an example. See what you think of these. Accomplish, a drunken sidekick. Croquette, a tiny little crocodile. Dictaphone, someone you really don't like calling. Befuddle, a tight group of cattle. Beef huddle, those dropped H's come in very handy, as in another famous wordplay game known as the Cockney alphabet, which begins A for horses, B for mutton, C for yourself. A for horses being hay for horses, B for mutton being beef or mutton, C for yourself is self-explanatory, and so on through the alphabet. Let's get back to Uxbridge. Economist, cheap fog. Ghoulish, Hungarian stew that comes back to haunt you. Intercontinental, someone who has wet themselves all over the world. Finish, a bit like a fin. Handicap, a useful hat. I could be here all day. A very similar operation was suggested on Rich Hall's radio show, and in this case the general public were asked to supply made-up words for already existing phenomena. They were called Sniglets, and here's a few of them. Gription, the sound of sneakers squeaking against the floor during basketball games. Caterpillar, the colour you turn after finding half a grub in the fruit you're eating. As you can see, these are more examples of portmanteau words, shoving two words together to make a new one. Here's one more. Elbonics, the actions of two people manoeuvring for one armrest in a movie theatre. So you get the idea. One final twist on this was to take the names of villages in Great Britain and give them meanings. The meanings being everyday things or feelings that we experience but have no word for. The book is by Douglas Adams and John Lloyd and is called The Meaning of Liff. Liff being a small village near Dundee. And again, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. See if you like these. Gignog, noun, someone who, through the injudicious application of alcohol, is now a great deal less funny than he thinks he is. Plymouth, a verb, to relate an amusing story to someone without remembering that it was they who told it to you in the first place. Poges, plural, noun, the lumps of dry powder that remain after cooking a packet of soup. Surby, adjective, insolently polite, as of a policeman who has stopped a motorist. While on the law and wordplay, just the one novel which is nothing but wordplay to finish on. But before that, a couple of gems that I haven't found a place for. Here's a comment. Not only must the law be done, it must be seen to be done, is one of the principles of British law, which explains the comment of the British judge who, not only having been robbed, but having had the experience published in the newspapers, arrived in court on the Monday morning and said, "Not only have I been done, but I have been seen to have been done." I don't know if this counts as wordplay, but it's my favourite philosopher's joke. This one's attributed to J.L. Austin during a lecture in which a visiting philosopher was explaining that English doesn't have double negatives. As in Spanish and French, you could say, I haven't seen nobody. In English, logically, that would mean I have seen somebody. And he explained this, then made the comment that, of course, though two negatives often make a positive in these languages, there is no language in the world where two positives make a negative, to which Mr. Austin heckled, Yeah. And one last thing before we plunge in. Lewis Carroll's riddle without an answer finally has an answer, at least one I'm satisfied with. The idea, why is a raven like a writing desk, was never intended to have an answer. Lewis Carroll's best guess to his own unanswerable riddle was because they both produce notes which are very flat, which doesn't convince me. However, hats off to Rick Hosburn, who gives us, because one is a crow with a bill, while the other is a bureau with a quill. And that's a nice recap of a Spoonerism to remind you of all the ways we have of mixing and muddling and mashing and mangling our language in a way that we find aesthetically pleasing. And although it's not a comic novel, James Joyce's Finnegan's Wake is an excellent example of the extent to which the love of wordplay can lead you. As a quick example of what you'll find in there, how about this? Psychoanalyses when we were young and easily Freudened. Young is spelt with a Y. Psychoanalyses begins S-Y-K-O and is hyphenated. And Freudened, obviously, is equivalent to frightened. But we can fish out Jung and Freud, can't we, from that sentence? Especially if we're talking about psychoanalysis. So that's the kind of thing you'll be reading, if you dare. The novel, experts agree, has a plot, but it's all written in a dense, dreamlike language. The main male character is represented by HCE, which constantly changes. Could be Here Comes Everybody. Often he's known as Henry Chimpden Earwicker. Sometimes he's known as Pierce O'Reilly, because, as you remember, Earwicker gives you earwig, and earwig in French is Perce Oreille, which sounds like the putative Irish name Pierce O'Reilly. Well, this is a bit of a deep rabbit hole, but let's keep going. The main female character is ALP, Anna Livia Plurabella, in her various guises. She, for example, has flossy hair, which sounds a bit like flossy hair. But wait a minute, I do speak a little Polish. Isn't włosy hair in Polish? Yes, it is. So if you speak 17 languages, and like a bit of a giggle, yes, it is that difficult. In fact, during the years in which he was writing it, 1922 to 1939, that's 17 years, he put out a magazine updating his fans on what was going on, a magazine called Transition. Why? Well, read it backwards. No, it isn't art. Let's just analyse the title. Finnegan's Wake. No apostrophe. It seems to be the wake, the funeral, of a chap called Finnegan. Now, Finnegan is known, amongst other things, for being the subject of the rhyme, there was an old man called Michael Finnegan, he grew whiskers on his chin again. The wind came out and blew them in again, poor old Michael Finnegan, begin again. There was an old man called Michael Finnegan, etc., etc., begin again. Just goes round and round and round, and so does this novel. It begins halfway through the final sentence. River run past Even Adams' place. Round rolls the river to Howth Castle and environs. Wait a minute, that's an HCE already. And as the eternal river runs round and back in on itself, so does the title. Finnegan's Wake. Fin is the finish, isn't it? Fin in French, the end. Again means again, and wake means wake up. Begin again, wake up is the real meaning of Finnegan's Wake. Or is it? There's probably more. Tilling a tale of a tum, telling a toll of a teary turty tobling. It made my make merry and sissy so shy and rub some shine off Shem and put some shame into Sean. Totaled in told telled and telled told in tittle tell tattle. If those brief excerpts have encouraged you to read it, hurrah! It'll take you a while. In most editions it runs to over 600 pages. And to end with this highfalutin literary masterpiece, according to some, we've come a long way on our quest for wordplay. From the simple pun to innuendo to anagram, palindrome, rebus, and the smutty quips of Max Miller, with which I will finish. The strange thing about this is that Max Miller said he never said it, and yet it's his most quoted piece of innuendo. I was walking along this narrow mountain pass, so narrow that nobody else could pass you, when I saw a beautiful blonde walking towards me. A beautiful blonde with not a stitch on. Yes, not a stitch on, lady. Core blimey! I didn't know whether to toss myself off or block her passage. So sad, we were soaring the heights of wit and erudition, and as usual, with us Brits, it ended up in smut.